Welcome back, guys, to another DW video. This is a video that I was actually going to make a little while ago, and I kind of just, I guess, put it off. It's about Joy-Con drift and my experiences with it. I've also sent away Joy-Con, and now all of a sudden this seems to be a bigger point of contention and just a bigger speaking piece, and factually, the amount of people that are dealing with Joy-Con drift now more than ever has seemed to just increase, and then the voice behind it and the actual people talking about it in comment sections, on Twitter, on YouTube videos, just everywhere, even on Facebook, like Nintendo of America collectors groups and things like that I'm a part of. Just the amount of people that have come out and said that their Joy-Cons are drifting is just like completely huge. And now recently there is this class action lawsuit that's kind of taken place, and you can sign up for it, and they're going to be trying to file it to try to get something out of Nintendo, or reaction, try to get it fixed, maybe bring them to court. It might just be settled out of court. But so I was going to make this video a while back, and it wasn't going to be specifically about this, but now that it's coming through and there's just that many more people dealing with Joy-Con drift, I figured I'd go ahead and switch the kind of video that is, switch what's actually in the video, but still go ahead and go through with it. So if you know anybody with Joy-Con drift, feel free to send them this video. If you're new here, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the like button and click the bell with the notifications on, right? I think that's how it goes. So my dealings with Joy-Con drift had to do with my launch model that I got, shortly after it came out, and I didn't have any problems. The Joy-Cons were working fine. I noticed that, they started drifting. It wasn't too bad for most games. A lot of like 2D platforming games and stuff like that wasn't really too much of an issue. It was mostly an issue with the 3D type of games like Mario Odyssey at the time and Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild more so. But I was getting drift with just the left stick where, Link was just slowly walking to the left. Sometimes it would be running, and then sometimes he would just be very slowly, like when you just slowly push on the stick, he'd be moving off the screen. And then my other stick started doing it, and it would be that the camera would start spinning just on its own. And sometimes they'd be together. Sometimes Link would be walking in a direction when I'm not even touching the controller. Or just the camera would be spinning around, or both. He'd be walking in a different direction with the camera just spinning around. There was even one time where I just kind of sat there and just watched it and saw how long it would go for. And I just let the camera spin around, and it was going ever so slowly, like if you just barely touch the stick. And it just went around and around. I just left it there for maybe 5 minutes, and it just wasn't going to stop. And occasionally I would take the stick and I would do this on the stick with my palm and just kind of, try to jam it back into place and jam it back to zero. And I would go hard on it. And sometimes that seemed to alleviate it for a little bit, but it always came back. So then what ended up happening with my launch model, it was the right Joy-Con, the red one. One night I was just playing the Switch, and then everything was fine. I was playing it in handheld. I shut it off. I went to bed. Next day I woke up, and then when I picked it up and turned it on, all of a sudden the right Joy-Con just was completely dead. It wouldn't register at all. No matter what buttons you pushed, if you tried clicking it on and off, the thing was just completely dead. So I was inside a year of the manufacturer's warranty from buying it off the shelf. And I went ahead and called Nintendo. He tried to troubleshoot it with me. He told me to take it off. He told me to push the little button on the side, try pairing it. He had me go into the settings. All the typical things one would do when troubleshooting and with dealing with the telemarketer side and the people that are on the phone from the customer service area of Nintendo. So I did all that, no luck. They said to go ahead and send it out. So I went ahead and did that. I told them the Joy-Con specifically was also drifting, and that if it was possible to fix both of those. And they just weren't really having it. I guess he kind of just thought that the Joy-Con was just dead, so go ahead and send it in. So even though I had taken it apart myself, and you could look at the tri-wing tip screws that are holding the Joy-Con together, you could see that I had taken it apart. The screws weren't completely new. A little bit of the paint had scratched off. You can tell when a manufacturing screw, especially like a tri-wing, has been tampered with. So it was clear that I tampered with it, but they went ahead and fixed it anyway. And what they did on the right Joy-Con was they did like the antenna mod, and they basically like moved it around the controller. So they're completely aware of that. When the Switch first came out and people were having issues with this, you know, they tried to update it with the firmware. And at one point they even said, if you're having this issue where your Joy-Con keeps disconnecting, you know, go ahead and send it out to us, call us up. It'll be completely free to you. And so that's what took place there. So they're aware of these problems. And so you know, I did get the Joy-Con back. I got the packaging notice here, and you know, it does say item number 1, main component. It has the part number. It says controller Joy-Con red, NE.red, HAC-U. And that was returned to me on August 16th of 2018. And, you know, a Nintendo thing and a supplemental information, parental controls, linking an existing Nintendo account, how to connect to the internet, re-downloading eShop, contamination, low battery voltage, and then over here, Nintendo Switch post-repair instructions. We have verified your problem and repaired or replaced the defective components. And then there's no previous check, but you know, there's the other checkbox here that says, after thoroughly testing your Nintendo components, we could not duplicate the problem you were experiencing, so we have, and then it says, you know, repaired or replaced the suspected component, tested or returned your Joy-Con controllers fully functional, all these other things. It doesn't really matter, but I wanted to show that to, you know, basically prove that I had sent it out to Nintendo. So then, just about 3 weeks ago, I had the same problem where I was playing my Nintendo Switch, and it was the same Joy-Con. It was the right one. I put the Switch down, I went to bed, I woke up, and the Joy-Con was just completely dead. It just wouldn't register at all. That was just it. And I knew I was outside of the year warranty, so it was going to cost me to try to ship it out. I didn't even bother calling Nintendo. I guess I still could, but I just went ahead and got new Joy-Con. And I know that I'm not the only one. I know there's plenty more other people. I've been watching polls, checking comments, seeing other things. You know, Nintendo will post the new Joy-Cons that are coming out in October. They put it on Twitter. You see thousands of people saying, these are cool, but please fix the Joy-Con drift. And you just see comment after comment after comment after comment. And they're endless. Joy-Con drift, fix your Joy-Cons. My Joy-Cons are drifting. Great, I get to buy the 7th pair of Joy-Con now. Like, it's always my left one. It's always my right one. And you just see comment after comment after comment. You see 50 to 70% of these YouTube polls I've been looking at. Like, there's like 5 or 6 different ones. Have you experienced Joy-Con drift? And it's more than a 50% in most cases. It's up to 70, 75% in some of these actual polls. And some of them have only been voted on by 30 or 50 people, and a couple others had up to 1,000 people. Another one had like 200 or 300. So they're out there. There's some proof. And okay, you could account for maybe a couple of the percent lying about it, and or just clicking one of the buttons to try to blow this a little bit more out of proportion. It's hard to get the complete truth from every single person that clicks the button, because random people can just click the button. But especially for these polls, they're from these Nintendo YouTubers and Nintendo sites alike. So you know that at least most of these people have a Nintendo Switch. They've played the Nintendo Switch. They bought the Nintendo Switch. They've dealt with the drift. I've seen a couple other people in these polls and comment sections saying, I've had a Switch for a year and a half. I just got one 6 months ago. Oh, I hope that this doesn't happen to me. You have some other people saying, you know, what are all you people that are complaining about it? What are you guys doing to your controllers? You must be bringing the thing out and going on the playground with it, or bringing it to the ocean and just like throwing it in the sand, and that's why your Joy-Con are drifting. But you can see the widespread problem. You can see people speaking out about it. It's not something that's just going to go away on its own. People have been talking about it since the Switch came out, since people first started having drifting issues. You see some of the other people saying that they haven't had it happen to their Joy-Con, but they had it happen to their Pro Controller. So in most cases, for the average consumer, when it starts drifting and they're beyond fed up with it, or it's interfering with the gameplay enough and their gaming experience, they just get pissed off. They end up buying either a wired controller for 25 bucks, or they go and, instead of buying new Joy-Con, they buy a Pro controller because their Pro controller is drifting. Or they go and buy new Joy-Con because their Pro controller is drifting. They figure new Joy-Con might settle it. Or their Joy-Con are drifting and they've never had a Pro controller, so they go ahead and buy a Pro controller, hoping that that won't start drifting on them in the next 2 or 4 months or 6 months or a year, however much time might pass. And so these issues basically deal with both the Pro controller and the Joy-Con. I guess the difference is the way that the joystick is made.
Let's get ready to D-Dub!
Hi, doggy. Alright, so in this video we're taking apart both this and this. This isn't an actual Joy-Con, but the joystick that's in it is exactly the same that's in the Joy-Con. And I want to show the difference between older school joysticks and the newer school, because Nintendo have basically only used this on the Switch, and every other joystick from the GameCube to the PS2 to the PS3 to the PS4 to the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One, basically all the way back from N64 and up, aside from the Dreamcast controller. That thumbstick is a little bit different, but for the most part, for Sony and for Nintendo, for Wii U Pro controllers, they're all the same exact joystick. Any type of Power A or third-party controller, I have like Power A ones for like Xbox 360 and Xbox One. Some are wired, some are wireless. They're all using the same exact joystick. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what the difference is and why this is happening, so we can get to the bottom of this once and for all, because I've only seen a few videos of somebody actually taking apart the thumbstick for the Joy-Con, and I've searched it quite a bit, and there's only less than a handful of videos that actually show that. So that's what I'm doing in this video. But so here you can see, as I turn it left and right, there's an x-axis. But I'm sure you can see that moving up and down or left and right tells which way your character is going. And so I don't know if you can see inside here, but we have this stick coming up, and it goes down into this little round contraption here, which, if you can see right here, this is where this little barrel is. So as we move this, you can see it move on the end there, and then when you push your stick in, underneath here is an actual button. Yes, this little gray thing here is a button. So when we push on that, that's where we get the button click when we push our stick down. And so on the inside here, it's pretty much made all out of metal, and you can see as I go ahead and move this back and forth, you can see it moving, and everything that's inside of that is made out of metal. But it's basically the same concept that's in every other controller. I've looked inside Xbox One controllers, I've looked inside Xbox 360 controllers. So yeah, usually there's not a problem with the sticks themselves, and I don't want to spill the buttons out here, but basically what's happening on the Pro controller and what's causing it drift is pieces of plastic. You have, in this case, a thumbstick, and then you have on this edge here, it can sometimes be sharp. And basically what's happening on the Pro controller is that when you go ahead and put it down into the socket and you start moving it around, I mean, it's a little bit different here for this stick, but on a Pro controller,
electrical component, so
you know, we're not dealing with this
like
hexagon shape.
Would get in the way.
So these edges here can be kind of sharp, and what they do is they grind
we're talking about
the plastic down. That's
the tiniest
right on the
piece of
outside
metal,
here.
less than
This is a GameCube controller, so we're
tip
not
of a
dealing with the
pencil,
hexagon,
so
but on a
that's
Pro
riding
controller it's
along
round,
here. It's
and
not that
the edge
these
there will
pads are
catch,
wearing out,
and it will
it's that you're
basically
getting
grind the
dust in
plastic
there.
down, and then
so
that can
maybe
get
one of
into
them
the
is just
stick.
lifting up a
So
little bit,
if you have a tiny little
and it's
shard
throwing
of
off
plastic,
the
instead of
register these
this
2
being your
points here,
0
because
point,
that's what's actually controlling
instead
it.
now
So
it's a little bit
it's not
off
really
axis.
a bad design. It's more
So
of the thumbstick
it's not right in
and
the center,
of this
right?
box.
So you have
and
a little
it's
bit
more
of plastic
of
in
the
there. So what it's
thumbstick
basically doing
actually
is
and this tiny little skirt here
Pushing
that can be
this.
lifted up, and you can
And
see
your 0 point is here.
this Joy-Con has
So
just
now
been
when
sitting
you
in
let
my
go of
drawer,
it, you
and
are slightly moving
all
to
it
the
takes
right,
is for me
or
to
your
just
character,
push
or
this
the
tiny
camera
little
is
piece
spinning,
here
depending which
to actually
thumbstick
lift
and
it up
stuff
so
like that. So
you're having the tiniest
in terms
piece
of the
of
Pro
dust come
controller, that's
down
not
and
really
get in
an issue
between
in the design of the stick.
these
The
2
stick is
points
fine.
here
It seems
that
to
are
be
rubbing
more of
along
the
this
plastic
literally
material
less than
and the
paper
hardness of
thin
the actual
pad.
thumbstick doing the grinding of
I
the
don't know if you
plastic
can
that's
kind
on
of
the
see
inside
right
there, and you're getting
here.
pieces of plastic.
There's a
going
little
down
bit
into
of
your
an
joystick,
imprint,
and that is
so
what's causing
they do
the
kind
drift.
of wear down.
All right, so now that we're done with that, we're gonna go ahead
But
and
it's more
open up
that
the
once
Joy-Con.
you
This, of
clean
course,
them,
is the
then it's not a
Hori
problem, and that it's just the slightest,
handheld
teeniest little
only
piece of dust gets in
D-pad
there,
Joy-Con, and
it
it's the
throws
same.
off
It's a little bit, you know, you got the
the
back
up or
button
down
here.
direction,
It's
or
a
the
little
left
bit in a
and right,
different
and it
place.
makes it think that
Kind
you're
of
pushing
around it,
one
you have
way
this
when actually it's not.
trapezoid
And like I said, overall, when I first
shoulder
took one
coming
of
off.
these
But other
apart,
than that, it's just
I was
it's
really
the same
amazed
thing.
at
Has
the
a
design
D-pad.
of it.
It's the same exact joystick. Whoops. Not anymore.
And when I first took it
So
apart,
the cheek
it's like I
fix
said,
here
I
that
think
everybody
that this
keeps
is
talking
both
about is to basically
an
go under
amazing
here.
design.
You can see as I move this stick, there's this
and,
tiny little skirt
the
under here.
amount of response
And
that
that
you
is the
actually get out of
problem,
the
because you're
Joy-Con
getting dust
is
up and under
incredible.
there.
By all
And
accounts,
of course
you would
it's
think
not
that this is
completely
actually
sealed
more
because
precise.
then the
And I
stick
would say
has
that
no
it
place
is.
to
It's
actually
the
move.
fact
So
that
what
this
people are
tiny
doing
little
is lifting
box
up this
that
little
it is held
skirt,
in,
and
you
they're
can't control the
blowing
dust
on
getting
it
in
using
there.
can of compressed
And
air,
it's also weird because
or
you
you
have
can
this
use
clip button
contact
here,
cleaner, things
and
like
this
that.
has never been
And what
a
that'll do is
problem
kind
for
of
anybody. You
blow
can see
around
here
some
I'm
of that
pushing
dirt.
down on it,
It'll
and it's
alleviate
actually
the symptom
clicking.
for a little
You can
bit,
kind
but
of
it's
see
not
the
a
marks
repair. It's basically just a
right
quick
here. You can see
band-aid.
2 little
And
marks
some people
on
have done it
both
with great
spots
success. You can get a
from
can of it on Amazon
those
for
tiny
$6,
little
$7, even at
directionals
local
actually
Walmart or
dry on
hardware
the
store,
pad,
things
and you
like
can
that.
see
You can get it very
here,
cheap. It's a couple
here,
bucks.
here,
I have not
and
ever
here.
tried it or used it.
So
at
that
one
is what's
point,
causing the Joy-Con
with my old
drift.
Joy-Con after
That
it
is
had come
the
back, I
whole
basically bought
spiel.
one of these,
It's just a
and
tiny little
I was
piece of
able
dust,
to take
and the fact
the
that it's
joystick
not
out of
sealed
it
correctly,
and replace it
and,
into my old
I mean, I
Joy-Con that
suppose in
wasn't
some
working, and then I was
cases,
actually
these
able
pads
to
just wear
open
down
up
and
this
stop
stick here
working,
and get the
but
dust
for
out,
me,
and
the
that's when I
case
actually
is
saw
that
what
after
the inner
doing this
workings
twice,
were
getting
of these
drift, and
Joy-Con
then just taking
joysticks.
this apart
So we're
and
going to go ahead and
cleaning
open it up
and
and see
blowing
just
on
what's
this box
different
over
from
here
it than
and
a
getting
regular
everything out that
thumbstick on
it just
most
goes back to
controllers.
working like it's supposed to. So to me, I'm no scientist.
The inside here.
Wow, thank you, scientist.
There
But
goes the
to me, it
SL
just seems
button.
that it's not
And I gotta
sealed
say, if you don't
correctly,
own
and
one,
you have this
you
tiny,
definitely
teeny
need to
little
get
box
this
with
Hori
this
D-pad
little
controller.
sheet of
It
metal
is-
holding it on the back.
It's a must-have.
And all you have to
play
do is
in
raise
handheld
that
at
skirt,
all
and some
ever,
people are
it's
using
a must-have,
compressed air
so definitely
and
go
or
ahead and get
contact
yourself
cleaner.
one. And it's
it's
like I
blowing
said,
in under
most
the
people
stick,
aren't
and
going
it's
to
blowing
be
down
taking their
here.
Joy-Con apart.
You're getting the air under here.
This one
and
isn't
in some
too bad.
cases,
There's like
it's
one
wetting
ribbon
it,
cable, but
lubricating
when you
it,
get to the
pushing
actual
some of that debris
first-party
out,
Nintendo
which it's not even
Joy-Cons that
much
come with
debris.
your
It
Switch.
doesn't take much
Most
debris.
people
You
aren't
can see
going
here
to
my
want
cables,
to go ahead and
you know, a
open
little
it
bit
up, or
scratched, but it only takes
once they
teeny little
actually
pieces
open
of
it up,
dust
they're
like
gonna get
that to
inside
get
there,
in
and
and
they're gonna
start
kinda-
drifting your Joy-Con.
They're
So
gonna step back
again,
out of
it's
fear
an amazing
of breaking it.
design. It's very
I
technical,
kinda
but you
had
can
that
see where
happen
it's
the first
cheap
time
to
I opened it,
produce.
but the first time I
as
opened
there's
it,
not
I just
much
opened
to
it. I
it.
kind of looked inside.
And
looked at the
overall, it
inner workings.
amazes me.
I was like, okay, I've seen.
It's
know,
just
videos
that
on
it's not
this.
sealed
I've
up
seen people
correctly.
taking it apart, changing thumbsticks out, and until that point, though, you know, there were no videos of somebody actually taking a joystick apart. And it's not like this is new. It's just coming out to light quite a bit more now, and with this upcoming lawsuit and stuff, you know, more people are reporting on it, and it's becoming more of a thing, even though people have been speaking out about it since the launch of the Switch, since a few months into the launch from the Switch, where you did have several people saying that their Joy-Cons would drift, and there's even memes about it. You know, now there's polls, there's a whole Reddit post on it with hundreds and thousands of people voting up, telling their story, telling what the hell is going on with it, and all of that. So okay, I've taken the stick off. So basically on a regular Joy-Con, as well as the Hori D-pad Joy-Con, on the inside here, like I said, same as the regular Joy-Con, you have this piece of plastic, and it's supposed to be kind of a seal, I guess, but it doesn't really do much. It just kind of, as you put this back in, it sort of just snugs around the thumbstick as the stick comes through. But so here we are. You guys know what a thumbstick looks like. Here it is. Here it is in all its glory. So here it is. It's inside this little box here. It's a little bit dirty. I just got some stuff on it. but it's encased in this plastic and metal box here, and part of the problem is that the dust is going in. But I'm going to go ahead and take this apart so that you can see exactly what's going on with this thing. And I do have to mention that this is the part where you could pretty much break it, because you have to pop in here to this bit of casing and actually pry it off. And if you end up snapping the little tab on it, I mean, that's kind of it. You do have to kind of bend this tab out of the way, and then you do have to get on one of the sides. As you can see here, there's kind of these two tabs on the bottom and the one on the top, and that holds together, and there's a spring. This little casing here it's not very thick. It's not made out of the best metal, and if you bend and snap the tabs, it becomes a little bit harder to hold in one piece while putting it back in. And this stick here is one that I don't really completely care about. And even if I break it, I can still fix it because I've done this before. So you see here, I basically just bent this tab out of the way, and now this one here is broken. But I can now get into the inside of what this thing actually is and how it actually works. So you can see here we're getting these little bent up tabs on both sides, bottom and top. Those are both the X and the Y axis, and they're traveling along on the opposite side here along these little black pads here, which are conductive, of course. And then on the bottom side you can see that that's actually where the signal from them tracks through, going up to the ribbon cable and actually plugging into the Joy-Con. Two prongs of a fork like this, and they're rubbing on that pad on this side and on this side, and they're touching that. And that's not like the other joystick in any case. So basically what's happening, dust is coming from the inside of the stick underneath the skirt, and then it is able to come through this part here. As you move the joystick, you can see here I am just pushing the joystick down on the table, and you can see that there's little cracks here in the white plastic, and so little dust particles are getting on there, and they're not even touching, you know, these little prongs here, these silver tiny little prongs. They're not even touching that. But if you can tell just how small this whole component is, and then you're getting dust onto this little tiny piece of padding. That is basically what's creating your Joy-Con drifts. You contact cleaner and stuff like that, and basically that'll come in, it'll wet it, and in some cases some of the pressure will push some of the dust along. But you can see, like, here's my pinky, and just the width of my pinky is the whole size of this pad. So we're talking about pencil width size that these little tiny contacts are on both of the sticks. And you have two of them for each. You have two of these prongs for the up motion, and then two of them down on this end for the left and right motion. So left and right, up and down, X and Y axis, and they're basically running along the tiny, tiny edges of this pad. Here, of course, like I said, is the actual click button for when you click down the joystick. So if you even get the tiniest little teeny amount of dust, you basically have to take the whole thing off, come down, you know, rub the dust off, get it off on your pants, and then you have a, you know, nice clean pad. But of course the problem with it is that this thing is so tiny, people aren't going to be taking it apart. People think it's something else, and really it's a great design. It's cheap, and it actually amazed me the first time that I took one of these apart. It just blew me away that these two contact points that are made out of metal are able to touch down onto this pad, and, you know, like I said, it's like a V formation. So you have something like this going on. So as you push up, you have this V formation, or these two contact points going up and down and touching onto this pad. So as you push up or down, they're traveling from one end to the other, and then in the same vein, it's the same for left and right. As you're pushing them, they're staying like this and moving across this such a
tiny, teeny little piece of board here.
So guys, that's my quick Joy-Con video, a look at some thumbsticks, a look at what I've dealt with it. Have you had Joy-Con drift? Please let me know in the comments below. If you feel that the class action lawsuit is something that you would like to look into and maybe fill out yourself, I will probably put a link down below just for those of you specially. That way you can actually get in on it, and in case something happens, you might even be rewarded a piece of the pie. And if you have friends that have Joy-Con drift or joystick drift with the Pro Controller, share this video to them. Share it around, put it on Reddit, put the link wherever you can. Put it on Twitter. I hope that I did a good enough job explaining just how this thing works and just how amazing that this tiny little piece of tech is. Like, this is controlling all of your input on every game that you've ever played on your Nintendo Switch using your Joy-Con. And so keeping the thinness and the overall compact nature of the design, realistically what they need to do is come out with a Pro Joy-Con, and they need to widen it. The Joy-Cons don't need to be this thin. They don't need to be this thin. They need an actual legitimate real joystick that will beef them up about 33% in width, something like that, where you can put an actual, and I suppose even the way it is now, you could probably fit one of those joysticks in. They just would have to make a little bit of room for it. So what do you guys think? Let me know down below. I hope that something comes of this. I hope that you guys are more informed too. I hope you share the video around, and I hope that you don't just throw your Joy-Con in the trash, and that you actually attempt taking this apart and putting it back together, because it's a little bit daunting, but it's not really that bad, especially if it's already broken and you're already kind of $80 in the hole. So I definitely implore you to, like I said, share this video around, get it out to people. That way they too can take their Joy-Con apart, because it really only comes down to a tiny little bit of dust. And I'm sure in some cases the pads are completely worn out. But in my experience, this one's just worn slightly, and I've used it enough. I've definitely pressed down on the joystick button, and there's not too many games that use the joystick press as an input very much. Sometimes it's just a camera change, or maybe in like a racing game you hold it down to see behind you. But regardless, it's just a tiny little piece of dust ruining it, and in most cases this can be salvaged just by taking it apart and just wiping some of the dust off. That's all it is. It's just such a small component that is the reason it's having issues. And I don't know if I really hold Nintendo responsible. It's a good idea. If they never drift, I would take this apart and go, man, that is incredible tech. And I still think it's incredible tech. It's just that the fact that the box itself just that houses the joystick, it's not sealed off enough, so you're getting dust in there, and it's ruining the experience for hundreds of thousands, millions of people. And like I said, some of these polls, they're skyrocketed with the amount of people. So go ahead, share this video around, let people know about it, hit the thumbs up if you like this video, if you're new, if it taught you something. Please feel free to subscribe. I also have a giveaway going on Twitter, so look down below. There's a Twitter link. It'll send you over to Twitter, and go ahead and enter the gleam.io link that's pinned up at the top of my Twitter if you would like to win a Pokemon Pikachu Nintendo Switch skin for your drifting Joy-Con, your Nintendo Switch dock, and the back of your Nintendo Switch. This is D-Dub out, saying until next time.